Hello, this is Matthew Chan with yet another update here on the ELI video show. And I got to tell you, we've never done so many updates in the month of June. And just coincidentally, we just got a lot going on. Plus the fact that Oscar has been gone for so freaking long. A half year, that is a long, long time. So, Oscar, I'm not even going to introduce you. Well, let's not waste any time. Everybody knows who you are. Where the hell have you been?
Hey, wait a second now. I've only been gone from video updates. I have been on the forums. I have been posting and checking out what's going on online.
Okay.
It's just we haven't had the time to get together and do a video chat and a video update. So I look forward to doing this for our members, our team, and everybody who likes to listen in.
So are you defending your position? Is that a defense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say gone, but not forgotten. But the official position is not even gone.
All right.
Here.
That is true. That is true. I can attest that Oscar is definitely in presence, but yeah, in terms of the upfront stuff, it's sort of hit and miss. So anyway. All right, Oscar, because you have been absent for so long, and I'm going to keep reminding you of that, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. What is burning on your mind? I mean, I've got a list, but I'm not going to even hit that list. I want to know what's burning on your mind in the last 6 months.
Well, I mean, that's a big, big topic, but
it sure is.
Overall, I'd say what's burning on my mind has been the expansion and changes to the ELI webpage in general.
Okay.
And our forums, in that it's quickly become a place for people to come, not just on the digital image issue. That's still the primary focus of the website.
Yes.
And it's why, it was put up, and it's what I would say the vast majority of the content relates to.
Yes.
But, every few months, someone comes on and says, hey, this happened to me.
Yeah.
And we end up talking about similar situations, and then the next thing you know, there's 100 forum postings on it, because some of our regular forum content providers just are so quick on getting on an issue, finding related content, putting up their opinion, and starting a dialogue that I just love. Over the last 6 months in particular, the nature of the dialogue that's come on the site.
Well, there's certainly a lot of topics. Is there anything that has jumped out at you, or would you like me to just sort of ping right on in there?
No, I mean let's go.
Okay.
Shoot.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Glen Carner and Hawaiian Art Network.
Wow.
Yes. So what do you got to say about him coming on board, me taking sort of a harsh stand, and everyone jumping in? What's it been like for you to watch this?
Well, I got to tell you, I was somehow not surprised at the stance that you took, but kind of expected, the same from you. But I thought it was tremendous at first that, he decided to come onto the site. It's the first time anyone from that side of the aisle, if you will, posted regular content. But I think over time we saw that he was more trying to become an apologist and was really less sincerely interested in resolving the issue. We kept hearing him ask, oh, please, tell me the right way to send a C&D letter. Is there anything that I could do to properly enforce my copyright? Yeah. And, we all responded. We all told him what we felt. And one of the things that I thought was the most critical was not what he said, but how he really didn't address the number of posts that asked him why Hawaiian Art Network images are seeded all over the internet on scores and scores of free image, free wallpaper sites. Mm-hmm. And the allegations, including some made in a lawsuit in Hawaii, that either Vincent Tyler, the artist, or Han, or Glen's company, whichever it is, intentionally seeded this or was aware of it and set it out there as bait. And I think he would have done himself a great service had he just explained that thoroughly, agreed to follow up on it, take down those sites, send out the notices, and certainly disavow himself and his companies from intentionally seeding the work out on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think the community was too harsh on him? For that matter, do you think I was too harsh?
Look, this forum,
yeah,
and in these forums in general, replace the old forum, which was, the public market, the park, the soapbox. I mean, that's the wonder of the internet, is that it gives this open forum. Would I expect this dialogue and that type of communication in a court of law? Of course not. It's not appropriate.
Right.
But, when I'm at a bar watching, a Giants game, I'm not talking like I talk in court.
That's true.
And this is that type of forum. This is a forum where, yes, it's an intellectual discussion, but it's a little bit rough and tough. And no one who reads the forum doesn't know what kind of an arena you're stepping into. And if you don't, by the way, you usually find out, 2 or 3 posts later very quickly what kind of an arena it is. And you say, hey, that's not for me, and I back out. But I frankly challenge anybody to look at some of the posts by our more regular posters, the guys who really attack the issues, yourself, me, Buddha Pie, SG, these guys, we all know who they are. They know who they are.
Right.
And I haven't seen anyone called out on a factual error or an incorrect statement.
That is true.
They're very
true.
careful.
Yes. A lot of people definitely want the facts as much as they can. Now, the interpretation, we don't always agree.
Exactly.
But the facts are, I have to say, there's not a lot of made-up stuff, which is good.
Yeah. Right. It's all usually attributed somewhere. Hey, I saw this here. You said that there. Look at this document. Look at that document. And, the growing number of documents that are becoming attached to ELI is also a tremendous source for people
it's crazy.
to come and see this content firsthand. Yeah.
Well, we're over 300 documents. I never could have imagined we would have 300 documents.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about pages. I'm talking about documents. And some of those documents are pretty – there's a lot of pages in some of those documents in themselves. I mean, I can't even remember everything I've uploaded.
Yeah, and other people are uploading it and talking about other documents and linking to litigation documents they can find on Pacer and other areas. For all its rough and tough, tumble nature, the fact is that I really think if you look at it, it's a pretty high level of discussion on some fairly complicated issues. IP is not an area of law that is easy for everybody to understand. And there's really a lot of good dialogue going on back and forth. Some of them agree with our positions. Some people disagree with our positions. And we just kind of let it go out there, And I thought that Glen Carner could have done a better job of honestly being involved in the dialogue and not just trying to make him and his company look a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, one of the pointed questions I asked you was, why now, Oscar, of all times? I mean, it's not like the first time we've ever talked about Hawaiian Art Network or Glen Carner. Why now? What do you think?
I think it's because they filed this lawsuit.
Okay.
And against Aloha Plastic Surgery in Hawaii. And the lawyers in Aloha filed a counterclaim that, frankly, they may have learned about or thought about through looking at ELI. I don't know. I haven't spoken to them.
Yeah.
About this seeding of images. And I think Glenn thought this might be a good way to try and test the waters and see what the community feels about that issue and how he might address it. And I think it was in that way a smart move to try and say, let me see what the community feels about this. Let me see what they're thinking, and might help me defend against this lawsuit, in Hawaii. And we're all really keeping a close eye on that. On that case.
That is fair to say. That is fair to say. Well, moving on the whole Glen Carner thing, but it's very related to it. Would you like to comment on the trends of the letters? Have you noticed that some of these, what we used to call, well, we still call them extortion letters, but some of them don't qualify as extortion letters anymore. Have you noticed a few of those? What do you think about that?
We've seen particularly with the digital image companies that are going to other law firms and
going to larger law firms.
Larger law firms. They're not using NCS recovery or NCS IP, whatever they call themselves now, and you're seeing those toned down, that a little bit of a toned down language, and I think we're going to start seeing that from everybody, including the lawyers that Getty Images uses, and certainly we've changed, I think, the way Han's going to operate with the lawyers that they use, and I've seen even a much more sedate approach. I just got a recent letter from Attorney John Grant on a Corbis matter that, is a rational attempt to collect on copyright infringement that is not extortionate at all. Even though, by the way, it asks for a high amount of damage for 2 images, okay? About $4,000 for 2 images. But at the same time, it explains these images are registered, that exposes you to statutory penalties and attorney's fees. Please give me a call to discuss the claim. It's one letter it's 1 page, with the attachments. There's nothing in there about criminal penalties. We're going to shut your business down. Yeah. It's not something that would make somebody have a heart attack. It's a good stern letter. They're going to realize they need to address it, but it doesn't. What stops it from being extortionate is the inclusion of these higher level false threats. $150,000 in statutory penalties. You may go to jail for up to 7 years. All of this kind of stuff. Yeah, and it's not even. It's a simple 1-page letter. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. And you know what happens as a result of that? Okay. The client called me. I said, look, you can retain us. We have we'll send out a letter. We deal with John Grant and his company, and we'll try to resolve it, amicably. When there's not this, grandstanding on the one side, then there's less need for grandstanding on the other side. And I wouldn't be surprised if Corbis ends up resolving that claim for a fair amount much quicker than if they had done the old, swatting a fly with a machine gun tactic. Okay. All right. Also, they're learning, Matt.
Yeah. With a little bit of persuasion, wouldn't you say?
Yes, just a little bit. Just a little bit. I got to get an update. You've answered this before in previous updates, and I just sort of. The thing is, I'm out there, as you well know, and everyone knows I don't have challenges in communicating my thoughts and my feelings. Okay, right. So I think that's a fair statement, wouldn't you? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I am going to put myself on the hot seat a little bit, okay, because you said that it's rough and tumble, and a lot of it is because it was rough and tumble from the very get-go when I launched it. Right. And it's just sort of kind of evolved. So I guess, for better or for worse, it just started that way, and it continues in that way by virtue of me. Now, the other thing that, I am aware that we're pretty harsh as a community, so, and you've sort of touched on that. But the one word that sort of came into my mind, and I just wanted to see how you thought of it, is, what do you think about our vigilantism? I mean, we are taking some matters in our own hands. And before you answer, I do want to insert that I do not believe the law and the court system can solve everything. And so that's my little defense before I turn that over to you.
Right, and I think that's also important. That's also important because there are, I think we each had different perspectives on the issue and how to address the issue. And there are definitely limits, on what I kind of can say and do, because I'm involved in the legal issue from a lawyer's side, thankfully. But, I think sometimes, and I think you and I have spoken about this, I think sometimes we go a little too far in attacking some of the individuals that are actually working for these particular companies. And I get the argument. I can already hear, Buddha Pie, Robert saying, they agreed to work for those trolls, the hell with them. I get that. I understand that. Don't, you can continue to watch the video, Robert. You don't got to stop right now. But
you don't want him to file a complaint on you, right?
It gets a little too personal for my tastes sometimes. Yeah. And I think it lowers the level of discussion. One of the issues, for example, and I understand people are well within their rights, making bar complaints against Tim McCormick, who's an attorney that, works for Getty Images. I could understand why that person, did that. And there could be very valid reasons why some of the things that he writes in his letters really don't belong in a lawyer's letter. But, it's kind of hard for me not to be, a little concerned that we maybe went really deep and far there in, in people filing those complaints, even though, they're free to do it. It's their free speech. That's why the Bar Association and grievance committees are there, and they can evaluate those claims. And I think it'll be very intriguing to see what the Bar Association in Washington State, says about those complaints. So for me, personally, I'm not into the vigilantism. I would prefer to discuss it from the corporate level, the people who are really making the money out of this and doing it. And I realize they need these individuals to get their job done, their henchmen, if you want to call it that. Yeah. But that's the only time that I'm like, I do sometimes, I read some of these posts and it's like, normally we talk about whether something passes the laugh test. Sometimes they don't pass the cringe test. Like, did we have to Photoshop her face into a troll or whatever it is that we did, that if someone did.
Yeah, some of it is a little edgy, I will say. Even I have to cringe now and again. I will admit to that.
But at the same time, it's like what I said about before. That's the nature of the beast, and that's going to happen once in a while, and sometimes some of these folks maybe do have it coming to them based upon their behaviors.
Well, let me ask you this:
based
on some of the trends that you have seen, would you say that? I'm not saying that you have to approve the tactics, but would you say that our collective community has persuaded the players to alter their behavior? Do you feel it was persuasive in a good way?
In some cases, sure. I mean, in some cases, the forum has stopped some lawyers from completely being in the business of working for some of these companies. And, who we're talking about. There are quite a few people who said, hey, you know what? I don't need any of that. But at the same time, just to prove it, as far as we talk about this quote unquote, vigilantism, none of our forum posters have ever been found to have engaged in defamatory behavior.
That's correct.
There's never been any frivolous complaints. We're by far more commonly the victim of fraudulent DMCA takedown notices and accusations of defamation.
That is true.
And
that's
all kinds of other
times.
Things.
Right.
Right.
So the whole extortion thing, I mean, that has been thrown in our face over and over. And we have to keep reminding them it's rhetorical hyperbole and a colloquialism, and it's well documented in the court, cases and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think the proof that we know the line is the fact that we've never lost, frankly, any of those issues. Mm-hmm. And let's see what the results of some of these, further steps are. And, I think it's important to remember that we're also putting ourselves out there in the open. We're not talking behind anybody's back. Yes. We're putting it out there for all to see. They can come and respond in any way they can. Yeah. I think more often than not, when people respond with information and try to validly explain their side of the story, the forum understands that and moves on. And I think what most people ought to do, it only gets worse when you try to defend yourself with some horrible, inconsistent, ridiculous positions that people can then find from looking at what you've written about previously on the internet. Is anybody better at that than our posters, Matt? Someone put something out there and it's like, oh yeah, well, you said this, 3 years ago. Here's an excerpt, from a letter you wrote. I mean, unbelievable the level of
even
research
I have to
that we
be
get
careful.
done.
Yeah, we have to be careful what we say. So
people ask me, why am I involved with the forum? And one of the principal reasons is so they don't attack me. I'm very careful. I'm just joking, of course.
I know.
I'd rather have them on my side.
Yeah, right. Well, prior to the recording, I had 3 segments planned, but because of the time, just for all of you listening, Oscar's staying late into the night because he's in litigation, so we're going to have to move this along. So anyway, in the spirit of moving it along, we're just going to cut into 2 segments, so I'm going to power through a couple more things that I think we need to talk about, and we'll just move on to the next section. I want to talk a little bit about your perspective. Again, Dave, everyone has heard from me. All right, so I want you to voice your. We have developed, I guess, for lack of a better term, an ELI premium support system, and I look at it as us tag teaming this nowadays. Let's focus first on your defense letter program. Would you say your defense letter program has evolved and it's probably the best it's ever been starting this year? Would you say that?
I would say that for a number of reasons.
Okay.
First of all, obviously we've matured, over the years. By the way, is it going to be 4 years this June or 3 years? What are we up to? How long have we been on?
4 years this June.
4 years.
Well, at least Eli's birthday. Eli's birthday.
Right. So 4 years that Eli has been out there, we've been able to see what the issues are, and it's definitely matured. But more importantly, and this is a good thing, because there's so much content and communication out there, there's less need for our letters. So the volume of letters that we are responding to has dropped dramatically. And while most people will say, oh, gee, that's bad for business, people need to realize that at $150 or $195 a letter, we were not whooping up, a parade here. Yeah. It was really just a cost-effective way to get some response out there. And so what we're seeing is that, the amount of information that we're putting out there to make it available makes it less necessary to necessarily hire us. And that, if folks have a little bit of savvy, they can figure out a way to respond on their own. But we've also added an office manager to the team to monitor the emails. We have a new email address that we set up, digitalimagelitigation@gmail.com, which is monitored by my office manager and a paralegal. And the response time has been cut down, dramatically. And so that combination of more support staff looking at it directly, as well as the reduction in the number of letters, has really revamped the program to the point where, like you said, it's running much smoother than it ever has in the 4 years of its existence.
Well, it's so darn smooth. I mean, I told your office manager, geez, I don't think we need Oscar anymore. I think I want to work with your office manager. I mean, she got involved and everything started. I was like, oh, I like this.
They can only help so far, in the sense that administratively, I still got to look at the letters. And,
I understand.
Make sure that they're accurate and check the content and do all of that the way I do with anything else that my secretary or my paralegal may work the first draft on. But yes, it's been tremendous, and I think the community has appreciated that, and we've getting tons of thank you responses for the speed in the response and the effectiveness of the program.
Now, I want to emphasize that you've always had defense letters for the various companies, but I think this year was the really first time that we actually put it in print for the various companies. And, of course, we had different pricing for the various letters, depending on the complexity of the issue or the time involvement. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, things have changed in the sense of the law and the position that we take on these digital image litigations because of some of the cases that have come down, involving registration of images by compilation and Getty's took kind of a loss in a case in court that got some attention on the forum called Advernet.
And you were involved in.
And we kind of modified, the program for that. But at the same time, we've seen other companies get more aggressive. Masterfile and Hahn, for example, have definitely stepped up their efforts. They've stepped up their litigation. They've become, I think, more aggressive in their collection efforts. And so while one side may have gone down, another side, kind of has gone up. So we adjust the letter program based upon what our experience is in resolving it with these companies. I need to stress that whatever the price is that we get involved in, it is far below our regular price and market value.
Absolutely.
And that, it's a discounted, severely discounted rate that we offer to try and help people with this situation, because they're being sued for they're big numbers to them, but in the field of commercial litigation and IP litigation, small amounts of numbers. Just to give you an example, we wrote about this lawsuit that's going on in the federal court in Buffalo between this guy and Facebook, where the guy claims that he found some emails where Mark Zuckerberg promised him 50% of the company, and he's actually trying to enforce those emails as a contract.
Interesting.
And they Facebook hired a firm called Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, which is one of the premier firms here in New York. They're extraordinary litigators. We've been on the other side of them in a couple of matters over the years. And so the plaintiff's lawyer in the Buffalo case lost on a discovery motion, had to pay legal fees. And the senior partner there, who's out practicing as I am, submitted his bills, and he's $9.25 an hour.
Oh.
And the partner working below him is $8.50 an hour, and then the junior partner is $6.50 an hour, and then it goes down to an associate who's out for a couple of years, and they're billing Facebook at $450 an hour.
Right.
So our rates are not as high as Gibson Dunn. We don't have 2,000 lawyers and 40 offices worldwide.
Exactly.
So, but the point is, IP litigation is extraordinarily expensive. To do it right and do it well, and they're doing a great job in that case, by the way. And I think it's going to eventually get dismissed. But
in the meantime,
right. In the meantime, it's costing an arm and a leg.
Right.
And I think we offered this menu, I guess you call it, a menu of services.
Yeah. To
try and find a nice compromise that we can cover our costs.
Yeah.
And bring new clients into the firm.
Right.
And at the same time resolve their problems for them.
Well, let me speak to the defense letter program. I think you and I would agree that we have never engaged in fear-mongering. I mean, we've been accused of it. It would really be a lot easier, to be honest with you, for both you and I, than to say, look, they're likely to sue, you better sign up. I mean, it's really a lot easier to have that conversation than trying to split hairs, it depends, and all that stuff. And so we've never engaged in fear-mongering to this very, very day. So I do want to make sure everyone understands that. Now, the other part of it with the defense letter program is that, I've brought, I actually, in my support calls, believe it or not, I take it on a case-by-case basis. Some people I say, look, you definitely got to hear Oscar. Others I say, you may not need Oscar. But in most cases, I will tell you, a lot of people end up, at least when they talk to me, end up wanting to hire you simply for the convenience. I mean, they just don't want to dig into the forums. And actually, you say there's a lot of answers on the forums, but really the volume has really picked up to the degree that a lot of us, even us regulars, have a tough time finding certain posts because it's gotten so large. I mean, we're talking about BuddhaPie, SG, me, we've all sort of like, sometimes we want to go look for it, but it's like, where was that darn post? I mean, it's just grown so much. So, I don't know. I'm not sure that the volume is going to go down. I think that there's an increasing amount, at least the people I talk to that sign up for the support program, they go for the simplicity. They just don't want to dig in. They don't want to spend the hours. They want to run their business. It's not, they don't need it. They just simply, you know what, let me run my business. Let's go get Oscar to do. And you know what? People just love that idea. It's the convenience.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's also the vast majority of folks who do decide to use the letter program are the web developers who have put these sites up.
That's right.
And so don't forget, they're getting contacted by their client. And it's much easier for them. Right. It's much easier for them to say, hey, listen, I got an attorney. He's going to handle it. You're not going to receive any more letters. Rather than say, listen, trust me, I went on this website. I read a lot of posts. I can handle this myself. Because all these digital image companies have various levels of stepping it up. Escalation, they call it. Getty has a notice of escalation. They have all these different forms that they do fear-mongering, essentially, to try to make you think like, oh, boy, this is really your last opportunity, not to go to hell. So let me pay up. And so the web developers like the fact that with the letter program, their clients are no longer contacted. Yeah. We deal with that directly for them. And, it quiets the noise down. People could expect to get as many as 12, anywhere as few as 6 and as many as 12 different, contacts from the digital image companies along the way. And it takes a lot of guts and a lot of time to educate yourself, to strap in and know how to respond and what to do with each of these 12 contacts. And so, when you say convenience, there is really tremendous convenience to just paying for the letter and letting us handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Did you have any last words on the letter program or anything that you think that our people with the updates and so forth?
I just encourage people to use the site, get yourself educated, and call us if you need us.
Oh, I do have one little nugget.
I know that we'll respond.
I know. I have one little nugget, and this is probably one of those things that's going to make you cringe. Do you remember a week ago? I think I sent you an email, something regarding a reply I made about somebody being cheap, and they were so cheap, and and I'm sure you cringed at that. But the thing about it is, I always tell people you got to pay one way or the other. If you don't want to pay money, that's fine. No one's fear-mongering you. Okay, so I feel really good about it. So go do your homework, but don't be saying that you're going to be scared. I mean, and all that stuff. If you don't want to do the homework, you don't want to. You can't handle it yourself. It's $195 for crying out loud, and to me, it's like a bargain. And I guess my patience level is, and of course I'm less diplomatic than you. I was like, look. You can't expect it all, okay? They're going to send letters. If you can't stand up to the letters, don't complain, I mean, for $195, this could go all the way. But if you don't want to pay it, don't complain.
Well, the other issue, I'm glad you brought that up, is when we first started, probably the first year or so, when this was developing so rapidly, I mean, we spent a lot of time holding people's hands.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God,
taking 6 emails to answer a question, and then
I used to go crazy. I used to see some of your emails. I was like, Oscar, you're killing me with these
right. And so because of the amount of content that has come on the site, the videos, the forum posts, all of that, there's less hand-holding. We're still nice to folks, but hey, look, we're not just going to sit here and answer questions for free all day and respond to the same questions. Every once in a while, we still get a post. Just got my Getty letter. What should I do? Right. That poor soul doesn't last. 30 seconds later, there's 6 posts. Educate yourself. Listen to the videos.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, we've come a long ways, and anyway, I always tell people we do this year by year. There's not a foregone conclusion. We're going to be here 5 years from now, and I think our transparency is a blessing. I mean, we're very upfront on how we work. We know where the lines are, and I think it's good. I think having an honest relationship with the public is a good thing instead of trying to, paint this picture that we're just. I mean, we want to do good, but I already made it clear. This is, for me, starting 2012, this has to self-support. I mean, I gave up all I can. I mean, my case is long resolved, as you well know. And I have a business to run just like you do, and we do what we can, but there's limits. And that's all I want to say on that.
Perfectly stated.
Okay. Well, Oscar, thank you for joining me in this segment with the updates.
Thank you.
I'm sure that our audience really appreciates it. And I hope our audience will join us back on the next segment. And it's going to be really exciting. Thank you.
See you in the forums.